Hi, this is Teddy, and you're listening to Morgan Harper on Two Broads Talking Politics.
Are you listening?
Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I am on today with Morgan Harper, who is running for Congress in the Ohio 3rd District. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining me. So could we start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Yeah, so, I was born here in Columbus, given up for adoption. I lived in a foster home and was adopted and raised on the east side of the city by my mom, who actually immigrated to Ohio from Trinidad. And, it was a single-parent household, went through a lot, but it opened up opportunity for me to get financial aid to go to an elite college prep school. Ended up at an early age to the economic segregation, how much your zip code, school district, who your parents are can drive outcomes. And it just struck me as unfair and put me on a mission to do something about that. So I, had a career in public policy. I'm a lawyer, and I just, came to the conclusion increasingly over the past year or so that what we're doing isn't working, and we need to be pushing for bolder solutions at the federal level. And I was going to present this platform to the people of the 3rd District of Ohio.
So the 3rd District, for people who don't know Ohio as well, is a very urban district. And Ohio, being as gerrymandered as it is also an extremely Democratic district.
Yes, very safely Democratic. So actually the only way for voters to ever have a choice in a district like this is for another Democrat to run.
Yeah, in fact, I think I saw there's not even a Republican who has filed.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure, actually. I hear rumblings on Twitter, but I'm not totally sure. So.
Talk to me some then about, as you're going around and talking to people and campaigning, what you're hearing from them, what the issues are that are really concerning the people of Columbus.
Well, the 3rd District, it's a very diverse place. So in some ways, people are having many different types of lives here, right? And it really is the story of the different lives that are being lived across our country. And that, for about 50% of the people, life is fairly stable, though I would say even for those, who would consider themselves middle class, expenses are rising, and childcare and, medical expenses are quite burdensome. But then we have, the other 50% that are truly struggling, 2-3 jobs, no health insurance, housing that is becoming increasingly unaffordable, and, an increasing number of renters as well. So, this is what really drove me to run, and also to present a platform, is getting at everyone being able to essentially lead a stable life. And that to me means, working one actually pays enough to cover your expenses, having access to health care that is affordable, and also housing, and doing something about the environment. Because of course, if we don't have a planet that's inhabitable, well, none of this other stuff's going to matter for much longer anyway. So, that's really the crux of our platform, and people are responding to it, because a lot of people who are living here are kind of recognizing that the status quo and corporate money in politics has not served us well, and they're ready for something more of a grassroots approach.
So as you're mentioning climate, I know, people tend to think of climate as affecting places, like are on coasts and that kind of environment, and don't think as much about how climate affects a city and urban environment. Can you talk some about what that looks like as climate change and pollution are happening, what that looks like in your district?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it means we have an F air quality rating. I mean, somewhat due to just the pollution levels, and it's, of course, carbon emissions that are driving climate change. And so I think you're exactly right. I think of this as like, oh, this is some, distant prospect, climate change and people in Ohio. But no, people are seeing this is having impacts on us right now. We're in the asthma belt here in Columbus, where you have an increasing number of children that are missing thousands of days of school a year as of they can't breathe very well because of the poor air quality. That's a, very tangible impact. Also, as temperatures fluctuate more and are more extreme, that puts burden on people that are already vulnerable, seniors, young people who, and also people who are earning lower incomes who now have to spend more money on air conditioning, all of this. This past summer, there were temperatures that were rising into the 90s, and a lot of the schools in the Columbus City school system don't have air conditioning. They had to cancel school due to the heat levels. That's not something that I think a lot of us experienced when we were younger. And so it is becoming very, very tangible. And you have a lot of young people that are organizing around that, about the lack of leadership at all levels of government, really, and a generation of leaders that have not taken this problem seriously.
And what are the kinds of things that you would like to see Congress doing to help alleviate that?
So I'm backing the Green New Deal, which is an idea of, one, acknowledging that climate change is happening and that, there is something that we can do about it in reducing carbon emissions by making a huge investment in the clean energy sector that would also create higher paying jobs for people and build out our public transportation infrastructure to decrease, a reliance on cars and fossil fuels. So, that's something that was pretty important to me to include in the platform because there is so much urgency around the issue. And, I would say here in the 3rd District, not that people have necessarily heard of the Green New Deal per se, but when you break it down in those terms, climate change is happening. There's something we can do about it. It will require big investments that can only really happen at the federal level, particularly when we're in a state that is at the state legislature that's disinvesting in the clean energy sector. We need the federal government to step up, put resources into solving this problem, but that there's a benefit on the other side of that this would create, more stable and higher paying jobs for people. And folks are into it and very supportive. So I think that's been one of the most exciting things about the campaign overall is, when I started, there was the feedback like, these progressive ideas, it'll never work in the Midwest. And it's like, well, 90% of the zip codes that make up this district supported campaign in the first quarter. And that is just a testament to the fact that when you have real candidates with real ideas that are connecting with people directly, they will support this type of platform, including solutions around something like climate change.
I wanted to talk some too about public safety. So you have a section on your issues part of your website where you talk about empowering citizens and ending violent policing. I think that this tends to be framed as an idea that's about what cities or counties or states can do and not so much about what the federal government can do around these issues. So I was wondering if you could talk some about what you would like to see the federal government be doing to help in these issues.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, that's one thing that I do find interesting and actually that people find refreshing about our race is it's almost an exercise in education and letting people know, these are not exclusively local issues, police, violence, all of that. There is a role for the federal government to play and also to do something at scale to address these issues. And that's something I saw when I was working at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the power of the federal government when it is given the mandate and resources to actually do something. And you can have national impact and, certainly impact here in the 3rd District. So on police violence specifically, I think there's a huge role for the Department of Justice to be playing in increasing the transparency and accountability within local police departments by requiring data collection around incidents of police violence, for example. So, if when these incidents occur, they just remain highly localized stories, then, unless people have the time to pay attention and connect those dots when, who has that kind of time, you don't get to see the larger trends, right? And you have individual advocacy in each municipality. The 3rd District, for example, it includes the city of Columbus, but also includes other cities, suburbs that, have separate local governments. And so that's a lot of work and pressure and burden to put on citizens to try to fix all these problems. No, we can have the federal government that's collecting data about incidents of violence and then issuing reports, right, so that people are aware of it and know when intervention is necessary. So that's one example of something we included in the platform. I think it's pretty important to mandate at the federal level that when these incidents occur, there are investigations that happen outside of the departments themselves where there's a clear conflict of interest, but that is usually what happens, and that you have, also civilian review boards that are weighing in, real community-based approaches to complete policing, but not just by police, by community members themselves, true authority to hold police accountable. And then, another, element of our platform to kind of boost the policing at all, in addition to transparency and increasing the community's role is, recognizing that in certain incidents, we don't need the police, right? That, in fact, bringing the police to a situation that could be more of a mental health situation could the whole environment. And instead, we should have, more like violent interrupters that might be mental health professionals that are properly trained to address those sorts of incidents without having armed individuals involved at all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I'd like to see a lot more conversation about that at the national level. I know that there's sort of an ongoing tension about primaries of Democrats. It's something that the DNC seems to be, thinking about, grappling with. It's certainly something we are experiencing a lot in Chicago, where I am. Pretty much everyone is being challenged in primaries. But I know that you are asking for a very particular thing from your local Democratic Party, that they not endorse in the primary. Could you talk some about that?
Yeah, so I made a formal request to the Franklin County Democratic Party after getting word from the Ohio Democratic Party that they would be deferring to the county, that they not endorse in this race. And the reason why I did that is what typically happens is the party will make an endorsement decision, and then that triggers a string of events. One event that happens after an endorsement is that there are mailers sent out throughout the district that feature only the endorsed Democratic candidate. And so flooding the market with this real misinformation that there's only one Democrat running, the endorsed Democrat. Then there, TV ads that also will feature the endorsed Democrat, and finally ending with around, election time and at polling locations, sample ballots that are distributed that only feature the endorsed Democratic candidate. This is, to me, it's undemocratic. And in this case of my race, it would be unprecedented, because in 2012, the only other time that there was a competitive primary for this 3rd district seat, there were multiple Democratic candidates running, and the party decided not to endorse and instead to let the race, essentially, to let voters choose and decide between or among the candidates based on, their policy decisions. So especially in this race where my opponent and I do have very clear policy differences, I think it would be a better use of resources for spend money, time, attention, all of that, educating voters about those choices, potentially hosting debates where bring the community together to hear about those choices, and then, choose accordingly on election day, but not be to thinking that they don't really have choices when they do, in fact, have them.
And where are you in that process of making that request?
So I submitted the formal request. Then I didn't hear back from the party. Then I was invited to screen for an endorsement, but I informed the party I would not be screening, because the screening process is only to then make an endorsement decision. And in this case, my request stands that I don't think we should be in, so therefore there's no reason to screen. And I haven't heard back, directly to that request, but we just, continue charging ahead. I hope the party will do the right thing and not endorse, and just educate voters about their choices. And we continue to reach voters directly through our grassroots campaign, as we've been doing since July 1st.
So tell me a little bit about working at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the way that organization sort of helps you think about the needs of consumers and income equity and those issues.
Yeah, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, like I was saying a little bit earlier, to me is really, with the right leadership, a model possible at the federal level in terms of using federal resources to, one, pass regular laws at scale across the country to protect consumers who, generally are working people that don't have time to read the fine print, need to know that the mortgage they're getting is safe and that they are not being taken advantage of. Because we do see, not all companies, but some subset of companies that are designed to profit off of people's problems, off of working people's problems, and that's not okay. And that was what the Bureau was fighting against every day and was successful at in returning $12 billion back to 28 million consumers over several years. So, it is a testament to the power of the federal government when it's really put to work for them. And that is a big reason why I believe that when we have representatives in Washington that are free of corporate money, we can just build off of that and, really pass legislation as well that's going to have that kind of impact. So, and then, the Bureau to me was also a lesson in the limitations in a way. Consumer protection is very important, but ultimately what we're seeing, and the Federal Reserve has done research on this, that, $400 shortfalls in this country are driving people into financial ruin, payday loans or, having to pay exorbitant rates to get their paychecks cash. And, this is not okay, but it also speaks to structural problems in the economy that are about people just not having enough money, right? And we need to be doing something about that. And if the market's not solving for it, we have to use the federal resources to create living wage jobs opportunities for people, consider policy solutions in the short term, like universal income, to make sure that in the richest country in the world, $400 isn't the difference between a family or individual getting evicted, a stable home, or, not being able to pay bills or put food on the table. Not acceptable. And so we have to, it also, I think there drove me to continue to look to address the structural issues in the economy that are keeping so many people behind.
And to that end, you're not taking PAC money.
Right. Yeah, no PAC money. We're not taking any corporate PAC money. The first quarter, we didn't take any PAC money at all. But my, pledge as Morgan, since the moment we started this campaign is, I'm not going to take any PAC money. A lot of other candidates, that are part of some of the groups that we've been endorsed by at this point have similar pledges. But for me, I was warned even by people, very progressive people. It's like, Morgan, you gotta take this money, right? I mean, we gotta win. You gotta be able to just get money wherever you can get it. And it's like, no, we have to take a stand and really reset politics for a generation and make people believe that we are truly working for them. And people know. I mean, the electorate knows. I have these conversations with people in the third district time that once you're taking corporate money, you are bought, and we cannot trust you. And I never want to be those politicians. So I want to be free, unbought and unbossed, and able to really fight for people. And that's how we will continue to have the support of the people, once we're in Washington as well. So, it's so important, across levels of government. Like, I'm running for a federal race, but I would say at all levels, state, federal, we have to get money out of politics in order to have any shot of actually getting government to work.
So if people would like to help your campaign, and they are not corporate PACs, what are some ways that they can help out?
Yeah, there's so many, of course, because we're not taking corporate PAC money, it is a hustle to get the resources. So anything that anyone can do, please go to our website, morganharper.org, to donate. Follow us on social media, MH4OH, and continue to spread the word. And if anyone, particularly in the Midwest, is interested in coming and helping us knock doors and build our people-driven campaign, then we would love to have them, especially in the new year before we get to March 7, 2020.
And I love this tagline you have, Morganize.
Morganize, yeah, that's what we're calling it. Yeah, and, to me, that's really about, well, one, it's catchy. And so, in this span era we're in, we got to make it catchy, but also it is a movement. It's a movement that we are connecting with you. We say, we're Morganizing you, because it's like we're letting you see that we can't do this without you. So connecting with people in this dish that understand that they have a role to play too. This campaign is kind of a vessel to bring us together and get us organized, or more, but everybody's got a role. So, it's really exciting, and there's just so much energy behind the campaign, and we're going to drive it home on March 17th. So it's exciting.
All right. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for joining us. I know we have lots of Ohio listeners, so I hope they will check out your campaign. And of course, it's not very far drive from Chicago to Columbus as well.
Yes, we would love to have you and anybody else. So, yeah, really, really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening, off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.